Hello and welcome to Business Insider with Mario Toneguzzi on yyccalgarybusiness.ca. Joining me today is Kelley Keehn, a best-selling author and personal finance educator. Thanks for joining us today, Kelley.
Great to be with you, Mario.
Okay, so you are launching a new book called Talk Money to Me, correct? Tell me a little bit about the book and what it's all about.
Yeah, Mario, this book actually came out earlier this year and we've revamped it for COVID because obviously it is a very different, landscape than it was earlier this year, as we know. So we really wanted to dig into the things that I've heard from hundreds of Canadians that's on their hearts and minds, and especially those in Alberta and Calgary. And each of the chapters in the book goes into financial missteps of these characters and lessons, and we really dug into the COVID specific ones as well.
So tell me in a nutshell and overall, what has been the impact of COVID? We're coming up to a year now, next month. What has been the impact of COVID on the state of personal finances in Canada right now?
Well, and it kind of seems like there's two groups, Mario. There's those that have been significantly impacted. They needed to defer their mortgages and credit cards and things of that sort, and they still are suffering. And then there's also the other camp that, actually was able to save money. They don't have their kids in daycare. They're not driving and paying for parking downtown, and they have a lot more money in their pockets. So really wanted to make sure that we were talking to both of those types of Canadians, but more so the ones that need help. If they did have a deferral, how might that have impacted their credit score? If their credit was hurt, how do they repair that? How do they work with lenders? Really conversations, and you and I have talked a couple of times during the pandemic, conversations that, Albertans have never had to have,
Yeah.
because even, if they didn't have a lot of emergency savings, as long as they had their job and an income coming in, they were doing okay. But my goodness, what a wake-up call for so many people.
Let's talk about those two different camps. First of all, the ones that are hard hit, obviously because of the economy, maybe without jobs, etc. What's your best piece of advice for them right now and what they can do to maybe stay afloat or stay with their head above water?
Yeah, it's really hard. Knowing every option that's out there, which sounds simplistic, but when someone is so stressed financially, their cognitive capacity, their bandwidth is being taxed. Not only do they have these financial challenges, but maybe they've got kids running around at home and cats and spouses and things of that sort, and there's a lot stressing them out. So you really need to know your rights as a consumer, and you need to know what options are available. I think the most important thing, Mario, is sitting down, figuring out what you owe. When are the due dates? How much do you owe? What are the interest rates? As hard as that is, if you don't have money coming in, why would you do that? Well, first you want to be on top of your financial situation so you can contact your lender. If it's the bank, if it's the Canada Revenue Agency, you don't want to remain silent, because if you remain silent, your creditors have to guess, like, are you going to pay your bills? Do you have any intentions? And you might be pleasantly surprised that when you call up your bank or your lender, they know that, hundreds of thousands of people are still in financial straits. They will often, more often than not, provide you with solutions if you're proactive. So the real takeaway is, get on the phone days, if not weeks before a payment is due, to let your lender know you just don't have the money, or to see if you can defer it for another payment that you can't defer. Do your absolute best to not wait till it's actually bounced, or you've failed to come through on a promise, because then they're going to be so much less likely to work with you.
Okay, and what about the others, the ones that are doing fairly well? What's your advice to them at this point?
Yeah, well, there's billions of dollars that Canadians are sitting on right now in savings, either because, like I said, they're not spending as much, they're not traveling, or they were sitting on some government benefits and maybe haven't had to spend them all. So now is a really good chance to look at them. RSP season's coming up. The deadline is March 1st. The financial industry has done a great job at educating Canadians about RSPs, but not necessarily the nuance of them. Like, are they right for you? Yes, there's a juicy tax deduction that makes them very attractive, but you really want to make sure you've got your emergency savings solid, because so many people had to dip into their RSPs, which meant paying more tax, which is really unfortunate. It really is a shelter, a tax shelter that's for your retirement. You're heavily penalized if you take it out now.
Yeah.
So the big takeaway, if you have money, dig into it. If you're just sitting in cash on the sidelines, is it time to invest? Is it time to go into a tax shelter like an RSP or a TFSA? Don't just leave that money sitting around. Get it working for you.
Okay, then. What about the future? Who knows when this is over? And they're talking about, probably not until next year now that we're going to be completely out of it, if we're ever out of it. So, what does the future hold? Do you think for people and their finances because of COVID?
Yeah, it's really the uncertainty, Mario, for so many people. Like I said, if you've got money on the sidelines, maybe you're not wanting to invest it because you don't know what's going on. If you're still struggling, that is a daily reality for you. So, you have to do your best to see where you can plan. So, for example, if you stopped your RSP and your TFSA contributions, should you restart them now, or at least put it in your calendar, your digital calendar, to
Mhm.
remind you, because it's unlikely someone's going to call you up and remind you. Maybe you had to stop paying life insurance premiums because you just couldn't afford them, but your family still needs that coverage. Like, whatever it is, even if you're struggling through these questions right now, use your technology to hold you accountable and remind you in 3 months, 6 months, a year, what have you, to go and address these situations that you've had to stall or put on hold or what have you. And then just, maybe talking to a professional. If you just can't get through this alone, talking with a certified financial planner. There are some that are offering pro bono work still during the pandemic. Why not take them up on a little bit of free advice? And if your debt is screaming at you, you've got creditors calling, then you want to reach out to someone like a non-profit credit counselor. We have Money Mentors in Alberta. It's a free call. Why not take all the advice that you can and then see what path is best for you?
So, Kelley, I was looking on your website, and you have a short video that I found intriguing. It was that it's easier for people to talk about sex than it is about money. Why is that?
Yes, we're still trying to figure that out and how we change the conversation. I think, Mario, where we're at is where we were in the 1960s and 70s with our health, when we used to whisper the word cancer. Now, today, we run for the cure. We have Facebook groups that support one another when,
Yeah.
there's a challenge, mental health or physically. But yet, when there is a money issue, and I should be specific, money issues are not the problem. We can talk about RSPs and TFSAs and stocks and bonds. It's when there's a lack of money. That's when we clam up and we don't get the support that you need, and you don't even know what you don't know. So it's programs like yours that I have the great opportunity to talk with and examine through the book of, hey, this is how we start talking about money. You arm yourself with information, with understanding the basics. You know where to go for help. And we start to take the shame and embarrassment and taboo away from it, that it's, not your fault, especially during COVID. It's not your fault. So we need to continue these conversations about money.
So, just out of curiosity, for yourself personally, have you always been like money savvy, or was there a stage in your life that things changed in that regard?
Great question, Mario. I was not money savvy. I was actually raised by a single mom looking after three kids as a waitress. I mean, like, to say that money was in scarce supply was an understatement, but I was also, I had a number of very wealthy uncles. So I had this very unusual upbringing of seeing a lot of wealth, but not having it. And I have to tell you, in my early 20s, yes, I did everything wrong. So I am not that financial educator that's finger wagging, because I was there. I know how bad it can be, and how your self-esteem suffers when you're going through financial difficulties. But I atoned in my 30s and my 40s, and I'm on the other side to say there is hope. There's always something you can do to change your situation, but it has to start with you.
Okay, super. Well, thanks again, Kelley, for joining us today.
Thank you, Mario.
Okay, that was Kelley Keehn, a best-selling author and personal finance educator based in Edmonton. And this has been Business Insider with Mario Toneguzzi on yyccalgarybusiness.ca. Thanks for joining us today.